welcome to Mourant's vlog series. Today I'll be asking Alana Gillies to talk to us about the introduction of limited liability companies to Guernsey. LLCs offer legal personality, limited liability and tax transparency. To date, they have most commonly been used in the United States, but LLCs exist in a number of other jurisdictions, including the Cayman Islands and more recently, Jersey. LLCs were approved by the Guernsey States on the 25th of March 2021 and will be introduced into Guernsey's legal, regulatory and tax framework. The Guernsey LLC will be aligned with that of Delaware, which is the most frequently used and recognisable LLC structure. The legislation has been aligned in this way to ensure that Guernsey's legislation is attractive and competitive in the international market. It is anticipated that the introduction of the LLC to Guernsey will be of particular interest to the finance and funds businesses, but also in private wealth structuring. It will ensure that Guernsey can support the US market by providing a vehicle familiar to US funds, fund managers and lenders. Consideration is still to be given as to whether LLCs should be permitted to engage in all forms of regulated financial services business, including funds, or whether restrictions will apply on what regulated activities an LLC undertakes. Alana, what will be the key features of the Guernsey LLC?
The Guernsey LLC will be expressly stated as a body corporate with legal personality. Like in Cayman, this is a distinguishing feature to a Jersey LLC, which has legal personality but is explicitly stated not to be a body corporate. While Guernsey LLCs will be body corporates, it is not the intention to tax them in the same way as a company. Membership can be taken at the point the LLC is formed or at a later stage. The LLC can have one or more members who, subject to the LLC agreement, may or may not receive an interest in the LLC, and a person may be admitted as a member whether or not they have made a contribution. All management powers vest in the members unless a manager is separately appointed. It is possible to appoint a manager or an unlimited group of managers which can, but need not, be a member. A manager of an LLC is able to make contributions to the LLC and share in the profits as a member. The manager is under fiduciary duties to act in good faith, act in the interest of the LLC, and exercise reasonable care, diligence and skill. The key constitutional documents of an LLC is the LLC agreement, which sets out the rights and duties of members, the administrative procedures, contributions, allocation of profits and losses, distributions and the overall operation of the LLC. The rights and duties of members as between themselves would be determined by the LLC agreement. And if the LLC has a manager, the LLC agreement should define the extent of the manager's powers, roles, responsibilities and limitations on any authority. An LLC has the ability to have different classes of membership, similar to shares and shareholders in a company. Contributions can be in the form of cash, property, services or undertaking to provide those things. A person should be able to be admitted to an LLC as a member and receive an interest in the LLC without making a contribution or being obliged to make a contribution to the LLC. The debts, obligations and liabilities of an LLC are solely the debts, obligations and liabilities of the LLC. No member or manager should be personally liable solely by reason of being a member or manager, but they may agree to be personally liable if they wish. Profits and losses of the LLC should be allocated among members in accordance with the LLC agreement. If the LLC agreement is silent, then the profits and losses should be allocated on the basis of the agreed value of contributions made by each member, as identified in the records of the LLC. There will be a requirement to maintain a registered office in Guernsey and to have a resident agent, similar to the requirement for companies found in the Companies Law. But note that an LLC has the ability to migrate in or out of Guernsey and also to amalgamate. Legislation should provide for further provision in respect of series, which is similar to Jersey but unlike Cayman and Bermuda. And a series is similar to a cell of a PCC, a protected cell company in Guernsey. They will by default be tax transparent, which means the LLC itself is not subject to tax, and profits will be taxed at member level, similar to a partnership. There will be the ability to make an irrevocable election at the point of establishment of the LLC for it to be taxed as a company instead. This provides some clarity compared to the UK, where the 2015 case of George Anson v HMRC made it clear that UK LLCs may be considered tax transparent, but this will be on a case-by-case basis, placing a huge importance on the wording in the LLC agreement to enable advisors to know how the LLC is to be taxed in the UK. If a Guernsey LLC carries on a relevant activity for the purposes of economic substance, then the same economic substance requirements as for companies will apply. And finally, there will be a requirement to file annual validations and pay annual fees, which are broadly equivalent to a company.
What would you say the similarities and differences of a Guernsey LLC are to a Guernsey LLP?
Good question, Gilly, and that's one we get asked a lot. Looking at the similarities first, an LLP is a hybrid structure sharing some company features, for example limited liability for members and separate legal personality, but retaining its status as a form of partnership. It will also be tax transparent. An LLC can also be described as a hybrid structure with characteristics of both a company and a partnership. The key differences are that an LLC can be formed by one person, whereas at least two people are required to form an LLP. An LLC can also be owned and managed by one or more persons. The LLC agreement sets out whether decisions made by voting or responsibilities are delegated to different owners. This is different to an LLP where each partner has authority to represent the business, sign contracts and make binding decisions.
And finally, what consequential amendments are required to be made to Guernsey legislation?
As with most, legislation changes will be required in the three pieces of legislation shown on the screen now. The beneficial ownership of legal persons law relates to all legal persons established in Guernsey to register in Central Private Register accessible by law enforcement. It will need to be amended to extend beneficial ownership registration requirements to an LLC. The regulation of fiduciaries law will need to be amended to apply the AML and CFT framework to the formation of LLCs. It will also be a requirement that only a fiduciary licensee provides the corporate services to LLCs, for example in their formation, management or their administration, amongst other activities. And finally, the income tax law will need to be amended to make appropriate provisions for the taxation of LLCs and around economic substance.
Thank you, Alana, for explaining the key features of Guernsey LLCs to us. We hope you found this vlog useful.